Investors risk putting their money into buying shares of a corporation. So they end up having all the power and control to elect the board of directors and ultimately to control what happens in the corporation, what decisions it finally makes. And the notion is that's somehow reasonable or fair because they have put their money at risk. I always found this argument somewhere between outrageous and insulting. And let me explain. What do workers do when they go to work at a corporation? Well, we know part of the answer. They do work. They use their brains and muscles to transform raw materials into finished goods and services. That's what they're paid to do. But they also take risks. And indeed, their entire families do. Here are some of their risks. The environment where the worker works, that's not a decision the worker makes. It's a decision the employer makes. Is the air good? Is the water good? Is the sound at a reasonable level? Is it polluted? All of those questions will shape the health of the worker and the kind of health he or she takes home at the end of the day. Workers take a risk when they work in the environment that's controlled by the employer. Let me give you another example. If the employer, the board of directors, make a mistake and produce something for which there's no market, the workers will be fired. They take a risk when they go to work for any company that their job will be lost, their income will be lost because of decisions over which they have absolutely no power, made by the board of directors, other people, and of course they're taking a risk. They're taking a risk that production will be moved overseas. They're taking a risk that the company will be unable or unwilling to pay taxes. And here they are, having moved to the community where they have a job, only to discover that the community can't survive because the companies aren't paying taxes. Come on, folks. When you choose a job, you're choosing a life, a community, a place for your home, a place for your family. All of those things are not what you're paid for. You're paid for your labor, but you're not paid for your risk. Well, why then, if you're not paid for the risk you take as a worker, would you want to believe that employers ought to be paid for the risk they're taking? Let me give you another example. The customer takes a risk. When I buy something, here's my risk. The thing I buy, for which I've paid, may not be what the seller claimed it would be. The courts in the United States are full of cases where exactly that has happened. We know the risk. And it's not much of a comfort to say, well, you can get a lawyer. That's expensive. You can take time to file a claim. That's a problem. There are all kinds of risks, but we don't ask corporations to compensate us for the risk. We are told you take the risk when you buy the commodity. Yeah, and we could tell the corporate investor, you take the risk when you invest. Don't give us arguments about being paid for a risk if you're not willing to pay the customer or the worker for the risks they have to take as well.